and hopefully grab some footage after we get off the live tonight about on day one. But Branson Robinson will start practice without limitations, but he'll have a load management, obviously. So no limitations. Sounds to me like he will be go as normal, but obviously will be on a pitch count, as we like to say in the sports world. And the first question that was asked was just, is there anything that that you don't know about your team that you want to know about your team per se that I could hear? And Kirby went right in. And he said is exactly what I just said. He talked about how they're going to take on injuries, how they're going to take on the heat, how they're going to take on a very intense camp. All I've been hearing all afternoon is how uh, just another level from Kirby. I think when you come in with 120 players, this will be the first camp in a while. Even though you heard some of the injuries right there, where we've come in, with a pretty good stockpile of guys. Coming in with 120 players on the roster for fall camp, which is a great number that Kirby talked about. But very, very exciting. Have not gotten really any information post practice, but we are going to pitch it back really quick. Let's add Kirby back, and let's hear a couple more questions from him in his fall presser.
Out of all those, Kirby, I think Branson Robinson news is probably the most surprising, I guess, to put it. Can you put in context the fact that he's able to go without limitations seems very encouraging about him being able to contribute not only this season but early in the season.
Well, he's I don't know what the number of months is. It seems like it's almost a year because it happened preseason last year. So I think it's not a shock to me that he's able to start and go without limitations. But the load management is critical because you can't take someone who hasn't done everything and just throw them into everything. So we have to be smart about that. But it's certainly promising because I thought going into I forget what practice it was. He got injured last year, but he was having a really good camp. He looked really good. And I remember thinking, golly, this guy was getting ready to, have a great season, great camp. And then he has to go back and you forget the blitz pickups. You forget all the things that he missed out on that he didn't get a chance to do that he'll be doing now. And I know he's looking forward to it. We're excited to get him out there.
Kirby, with the NCAA allowing support staffers to coach on the field, games and practices, what does that mean in terms of how does it look for you guys out there, this August?
Well, we'll use more coaches now and have the ability to maybe move some coaches around in terms of if you've got one drill going on, you've got another person that's allowable coach that maybe has really good experience coaching or knows our system to be an extra set of eyes, ears, and coach guys. So we're excited about that. I'm excited. Some of the special teams periods, we're going to be able to take kids that aren't in special teams where we had a lot of our coaching dedicated to special teams. We have people on the outside now that may be able to do special teams and free our coaches up to give a little time to guys that aren't in, like skill development. A guy can go over and work on things he needs to work on and not lose time. So it's helpful organizationally to do that.
So obviously Kirby hops in there and talks a little bit about Branson, talks about how, the expectation is he going to just be kind of thrown back in there, and what kind of capacity is he going to be able to be doing things at. And the only thing he really mentioned was just, basically that after you've not done much for a short time, you can't do everything once, kind of everything kicks back up, which is, common knowledge. But to hear it from Kirby, it's understandable. He talked about the added position coaches and how it's going to help extremely based off of, some coaches who have been around the system, and some, obviously we have a couple that are new, and some of the challenges that are going to happen it's their first fall camp too. So obviously a lot going on there. And then you got position battles. A lot of us, we've talked a little bit about Georgia as far as positioning kind of all throughout the last few months, as signing day happened, as early signing period, and we brought recruits in that even practiced in the bowl games, practices as KJ Bolden and Ellis Robinson and Ryan Puglisi, and that's just a couple of names, but they were able to practice. But a lot of eyes today were on some of the newcomers that came in during fall. I know a lot of some things I read. Benjamin Urasek, obviously look the part. Kirby commented on how he loved how, he's come in and he's just adapted so well to the culture of Georgia. He's meeting with a lot of guys that he doesn't know, and he's trying to get to know them. And it's one of those things of I've kind of been adopted into the family per se, I guess you would call it, and it's like, but I want to be a part of the family, so I want to get to know everybody. I want to know how the family ticks. I want to know how I can be a part of a family that already has great culture. So getting to know them and getting to know how they're wound and figure out, the playing field is really good for culture. And I think that's going to help him in the long run. We expect big things from Benjamin Yurosek. I mean, he's a big guy. He was sought after a lot in the Stanford offense. And so he's going to do some great things for us, as well as I heard Nate Frazier's name called a lot. And being as though, there's a lot of, Branson looked good in some areas. I heard a lot of things about Rod Robinson. I heard a lot of things, obviously, about Trevor. But, like, apparently Nate Frazier was the guy that people were looking at and going, who is that? Like, who is that guy? And he didn't have any practices, coming into fall. He's hitting the ground running. He didn't have any G-Day. He didn't have any early signing, any of that stuff, bowl practice, any of that thing. So he's coming in, full tilt. And so that's really cool to see. So we're seeing some faces that we did not see in fall camp. We did not see in spring camp that are entering into the conversation. But yeah, back to so position battles. I think I put a few down here. Obviously, coming off of what we just talked about with Ra, I think Ra being dismissed, it creates some issues. Obviously, we were counting on him a lot for some reps to back up people like Dom Lovett, Dylan Bell, maybe even to catch some starts right there in the slot in some area. I'm sorry, at the Z, where maybe Dylan Bell could go to the slot, a bigger slot guy, but more of a line him up into some exotic formations, kind of, i.e. Brock Bowers, and get him the ball in different areas. But with Ra being dismissed, it definitely opens the avenue for position battle type things. And we look at names like Colby Young, the transfer out of Miami, who's Georgia's looking to do big things. The media is talking Colby Young up, and as it may, I mean, it should be. He had a great spring camp. He had a great spring game, and he was very talented at Miami. He's a big kid that's going to be able to go get some jump balls. He's going to help us increase the percentages of being able to score in the red zone, which is something that I would say Georgia has struggled with at times. I know listeners would agree. But Yurosek is going to obviously be somebody that's added to that. That's going to help with the loss of Ra, add to that depth that'll push Dylan Bell out. Although Yurosek was behind. I think he was behind Lawson Lucky and behind Delp today in the line for depth. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, not at Georgia. I mean, you see a lot of these and those, not necessarily 1, 2s, and 3s. Then obviously Lawson Lucky may have an opportunity to spread his wings a little bit. I know a lot of people commented about how much he's put on a little bit of weight, a little bit of muscle. He's a little more of a I'd say he gets a little bit less pushed around as a tight end, which they wanted more of. And then obviously you look at things where people were expecting a lot from at the receiver position. You look at Dom Lovett, you look at Dylan Bell. Does this enter in a little bit of a thing for a London Humphrey, an Anthony Evans? Who knows? But those names now definitely come up and are very important. I'm not trying to forget Arian Smith. I know that was one name that popped out today by reporters that said Kirby was pushing really, really, really hard today. Was Arian Smith. His name was coming up a lot. I don't think Kirby's given up on Arian. I'm very curious to see. If anything, I would love Arian to be the comeback kid as far as the hands, are concerned. I would love to see him catch some balls this year that you just go, man, this is a great story to see Arian Smith now be able to put the hands with the incredible speed, route running, and maybe he arrives. I mean, the support is overwhelming for the kid. He's a great kid. Already has a great work ethic, great attitude. I just hope it lines up for him this year. We're going to need him for it to line up. He has incredible track star speed. So if we could put the hands with it, it definitely adds another element and another, stretching the field is going to be something added to it. A really good running back room this year. That's going to be something that's going to make Georgia's offense really, really potent. But London Humphrey is somebody we haven't heard much from over spring, but does this kind of allow him to to get in there and see what he's made of. Anthony Evans, you got some, Nitro Tuggle. You got a lot of names in there that it's like, they're ready to step up and ready to figure out what they can do to take on some of those reps from Rah. And then I look at, free safety is another obvious position that you could look at. You look at, some dog fans I've talked to some people I'm close to, and they're like, who's this Ja'Cory Thomas guy? And, Ja'Cory Thomas is definitely a guy that some people need to get to know. Very physical player, plays a lot behind the pads, kind of a hit you type guy. But he has some sneaky good speed as well. He kind of came out of nowhere. I'll be honest with you. Dan Jackson, this was a position where it was like, KJ Bolden was being very heavily recruited for knowing that this would be a big possibility on the other side of Malachi, and KJ may see some reps. He was working behind Dan Jackson today, obviously with Aguero and everything, working at the star, and obviously Malachi working a strong safety over there, and then obviously Jake Pope being in there somewhere. So there's a lot going on, but that secondary is going to grow up really quick, and we're not there yet. I don't want to prematurely talk about Georgia Clemson, but they're going to get tested in that area. And there's going to have to be, you've seen some of the injury front stuff, news and everything going on with the defensive front. And you look at the secondary, you just kind of got to look and you got to wonder. I mean, we're going to rely a lot on that linebacking crew, that athletic linebacking crew. And there's a lot of depth there, but there's a lot of athleticism there. And so it's exciting, but I got to see how this secondary and this defensive front comes together during fall camp. It's going to say a lot about how we look, Georgia Clemson, and how we look for the first 3 or 4 games of the year, because it's going to tell. It's a tough schedule. It's a tough schedule. We don't have long to grow up. We got to grow up really fast, and or something's going to grow us up. Something's going to grow us up for us, and that's my worst fear. Yeah, and then the third thing I would say, position battle wise, is like, we talked about Branson. Is he back? I know that a lot of us didn't get a chance to, see Branson in a lot of just in and out roles. But, when you did see Branson, 2 years ago, you saw a guy come in who ran with extreme power, very elusive, kind of had a lot of people are saying Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb, he very, very much the same style as a Nick Chubb. And to some dismay, he is. I will say that, it's hard to compare anybody to a Nick Chubb, but I would say Branson has a little bit of that. Noted that was said he looks a little bit leaner, still incredibly. I mean, I saw a picture of him. I think it was on Facebook or something the other day, and they took a picture and they posted it on there. They didn't have a name on it yet. I had to open the clip from Facebook to see exactly what the context of it was, and it was a picture of Branson Robinson, and the man looked. I mean, there's no lack of contribution in the weight room. The guy looks the part. So I'm curious to see with the scene, a little bit of weight off of him, if that makes a difference, or was that from the injury, or was that intentional? So we'll see very soon. I'm interested in seeing some of the clips from that, but a lot of excitement. There was probably, I'm sure, day one, there was more excitement on the fact of just trying to get people to know how practice is going to look, how it's going to go, where Kirby's voice is at, where the coaches' voices are at. They're just trying to get into a practice mode. I'm sure today was a lot about drills, a lot about just getting back to basics, following up from spring camp, being able to put some of those practices together they had in spring camp, and create some opportunities and some things they could work on for the first couple of days of fall before they get into coming out of fall camp and getting into practice for the fall and preparing for Clemson before you know it. So exciting times. I don't know if I said it earlier, but 34 days. 34 days is not a lot. Now, it used to be when I was younger, it was like, good night. Like, it's forever. But I will say that, 34 days is not a lot of time when you're looking to try to grow a team, and especially in the world of NIL and the world of the portal right now. So not a lot of time. We are close. 34 days is going to move quicker than we think it will. So let's press on though. Let's hop into our preview part 4. Like I said, I'm flying solo tonight. We're going to try to keep it to a power 45 tonight. We'll see what happens. Missing my man Fish, Bobby Rouse, but just want to greet you guys and tell you I'm here riding solo. keeping it real here for episode 20. Episode 20. We are 20 episodes in to Dogs Down South. Thanks everybody for the support. If you join, if you comment, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if you have not done so, we are live 24 hours after the show goes live on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and other streaming platforms, Samsung, whatever. Pretty much, there's some I hadn't even heard of, but we're on there. So go find it. Amazon Music, Amazon Podcasts, all that stuff. Go find us as you're riding your car. You can hear a little bit about Georgia football. We're super excited for week 1 as well. We're going to do a lot of really cool things leading up. Talk about do some pick'ems for week 1 and week 0 as well. But also get heavily involved into what this show is. We'll get off the previews of other teams and really dive in and dig into what this team looks like this year and how from week to week they are maneuvering through this tough SEC schedule. But for part 4 of the SEC preview, let's take Mississippi State first. Bear with me tonight. Like I said, I'm flying solo, and I sometimes I'm flying solo. I don't get to I get to cough and mute, and it sounds silent, but almost packed a lung up there. Anyways, so we're going to preview Mississippi State. So obviously big news for Mississippi State is Jeff Lebby is the new coach at Mississippi State. High flying, fun and run gun. Is that what it is? Fun and run? I know what it is. It's the run and gun offense, but definitely a picture out of Lane Kiffin's offense over at Ole Miss. Extremely great job on another team we're going to preview tonight, Oklahoma, to bringing that offense to life in so many ways. And I think that's what Mississippi State's trying to get back to. They're trying to get back to good old-fashioned, good defense, cowbells, and a Mike Leach, God rest the pirate, a Mike Leach style high-scoring offense. Although I don't know if Lebby's playbook is going to be able to be on a Post-it note. I just don't know about that because that's definitely a goat move by the man Mike Leach himself, is to have the entire playbook, from what I understand, was on a Post-it note. But Mississippi State, just kind of like Vanderbilt and kind of like a couple teams, obviously struggling with NIL, struggling to stay within the scope of getting players in the transfer portal, and recruiting is definitely a challenge. But I think Lebby could offer some really good things. He's done some really good things with, at that time, what was, Ole Miss, as Lane got in there and was coming off of, the Hugh Freeze era where, Hugh Freeze left. I feel like that, Ole Miss was that, 3+ 4-star program that needed some dudes, right? And so Lane Kiffin hit the portal this year and he got those dudes. So, you look at Lebby and you look at kind of his, I think, he was at Oklahoma, and I think he did a lot for Oklahoma. I think he learned the most from Kiffin, out at Ole Miss when he was with him. So we'll see how it transpires. Returning starters, standouts that I have: right tackle Leon Bell, free safety Corey Ellington, and some breakthrough players. So obviously, Mississippi State was able to go get some portal splashes. They were able to get Blake Shapen from Baylor, transfer QB. I think Lebby knew he had to have a guy to run his offense, somebody who could sling the ball a good amount of times. They're going to throw the ball 75, 80 times a game. They could be the first team to ever throw the ball triple digits. I don't know. But I do know that, I think Lebby knows year one, with not a lot returning, that scoring and putting points on the board is going to be that is what wins games. But, scoring and putting points on the board is part of it, but it's something that Mississippi State struggled with last year. I really think that is going to be the goal, is to really get an installation of what Lebby wants to do on an offensive standpoint, and the fact of what he wants to do as far as airing the ball out and scoring a lot of points at Mississippi State in the SEC. Also, wide receiver Kelly Akari. Now, I'm excited about Kelly Akari. UTEP transfer had over 1,000 yards receiving last year for UTEP. Kelly Akari is a name that's going to be. He's going to get a lot of. I think this is one of the main reasons he came to Mississippi State. He'll get his number called a lot. And when you're throwing the ball, I exaggerate 70 times a game. When you're throwing the ball, 60, 40, 50, 60 times a game, you could, and you could get at least 20, 25 targets a game. Who knows? But ideally you're going to at least get what, 10, 12? That's more than a lot of people in a very balanced pro style offense are going to get, no matter what. So Kelly Akari made a good move coming over from UTEP to come to the SEC to try to obviously increase draft stock, but also try to. I'm sure the pitch was let's get some building blocks over here at Mississippi State. You can be a part of that in my first year here. So Lebby has a lot riding on Kelly Akari and Blake Shapen. Strengths, in my opinion, Lebby is going to score points in this offense. It's definitely the number one strength coming into this season for Mississippi State. I personally, this year, I have tickets to the Mississippi State game, so I'll see this one in Athens in person. That's one of those teams where you don't know. You could see a really, good, solid record coming into Athens, or it could be a struggle. They have a lot of games, right out of the box that are very challenging. But you look at the SEC in general, and the SEC, all the SEC has a huge challenge. A lot of hard schedules. Georgia being one of the toughest in there. Florida being one of the toughest. So at the end of the day, I think everybody has some sort of a tough schedule. But obviously, when you're dealing with lack of NIL, lack of recruitment, and lack of resources right now, Mississippi State struggled a little bit in that area. But Lebby's he's gonna figure out a way to score points, and so that's gonna continue to make Mississippi State a question mark of could they be a success year one. Shapen has to have the time to throw the ball. I think the offensive line is gonna really, really struggle this year. I think the defensive line was very bad last year, which caused the secondary to be very bad, which in turn is the reason why Mississippi State in defense, scoring defense, passing, they were 109th against the pass last year. That's just not going to cut it. And so, especially in the SEC, when you're playing your rivals, Ole Miss, when you're playing Alabama on that side of the West last year, you're playing Alabama, you're playing Ole Miss, you're playing LSU. That's just not going to fly. So that's definitely got to improve. But Lebby's going to score points. Shapen has quality wideouts. I think he has enough out there to get the job done for them to score some points. Can the offensive line keep shaping up right? And can Lebby figure out some ways to get the ball to these wideouts and get Shapen some easy throws? That'll be the huge thing. And I think leadership. I think leadership from Lebby is going to be huge. I've said his name a lot, but he's a guy that came in and they're banking on him to restore this program. I think they like this name. Arnett was the safe hire. He was the sentimental hire after Mike Leach, his passing. I think it was the right move. Maybe not on paper, but from what the players wanted and things of that nature. But when it all panned out, I think there was a lot of struggles there, and he really couldn't put two and two together on some of that stuff. And obviously, coaching changes have Lebby down here, and then the defensive coordinator Coleman Hutzler, key coaching change right there, because Arnett was a defensive minded guy. They had some good things last year on defense. But it's it's got to transfer, and what happens when you throw the ball 50, 60, 70 times a game is you stand the chance of your defense staying on the field a lot. And so this is, Coleman Hutzler is going to be very, very key to this team to make sure that, they're going to be on the field a lot. So they have to execute. They have to get off the field. And so not a ton of talent on that side of the ball returning, if any. I think the biggest name I just told you was Corey Ellington at free safety, but not a ton of known pieces back there. And then they didn't get a lot in the portal from either side either. So obviously I talked about stats that really need to improve for Mississippi State to be, successful next year. Offense passing 109th. they just. I think I said the wrong thing earlier. I think I said that in defense, but defense was scoring 66 at 26.6 points per game. But the statistic that blows your mind is coming from an offense that 2 years before that, 3 years before that, averaged over 300 yards of total offense in the air. That's not it's not counting on the ground. 181.8 yards average. That's 109th in Division One college football. That's not going to cut it in the SEC. You're just not going to win many games that way. The key things I will tell you is one of the biggest games on their schedule is Florida, and they get Florida at home. There's a couple of games that Napier has checked off that I think a lot of people are going, Napier has to win this game or he might not make it to this number of games before they fire him. And we'll talk about Florida in depth later on. I don't want to get too far in there, but definitely a circled game for Mississippi State because who knows? That's one that Florida thinks I got to win. Arkansas at home, same thing. Pittman, I mean, that's a game that's circled for them because that's a game that they have to win as far as job security for Pittman. So we'll see. I think Texas A&M at home, Ole Miss, the Egg Bowl in the Grove is going to be tough for them. A&M at home is still going to be tough for them. I think A&M is going to be competitive this year. We're going to talk about them in a second, but I think all in all, Mississippi State has a lot of they got a lot of work cut out for them. So we'll see how it all transpires. But I wish Lebby the best of luck. It's gonna be a tough slate for him this year. So moving on to Oklahoma. So returning standout. So obviously Oklahoma. This is the first time we're previewing a team that's not been in the SEC from last year, and I got to tell you, there's no lack of talent returning. The biggest key for them, and we'll talk about in a second, is how can we get this talent to perform well in terms of blocking, doing the basic stuff right that, in my opinion, Oklahoma struggled with the past few years, and it's kept them from possibly doing really, really well in the Big 12. But a lot of returning standouts. Obviously, the big ones: quarterback Jackson Arnold, really elusive, really great arm, really solid kid. Showed some really great poise in the bowl game last year. I don't know about him from a leadership standpoint, but I know he has a lot to offer of athleticism and his ability to move the offense. That's exciting. One of the big things is will they be able to Seth Luttrell from I do not know where Seth Luttrell's from, but I know he's the new offensive coordinator. But him being able to get Jackson Arnold in positions like Lebby used to be able to get him in to be able to be successful is going to be huge. Man, a lot of good talent, man. Billy Bowman is a extremely great talent in the defensive backfield to watch out of Oklahoma. Really fast kid. Really, he's got a good head on his shoulders. Very smart kid. Huge asset in the defensive backfield. Linebacker Danny Stutzman. I love watching Danny Stutzman last year. Kid was everywhere. Every time he hit somebody, I was just like, man, he went so hard, man. I was just concerned at some point in time. Really, really flies around the ball. And then running back Gavin Sawchuk, man. I know this guy has a 98, I think a 96 Excel, 98 speed on NCAA 25. So, yikes. Definitely some returning skill players that are going to help them out. Breakthrough players, wide receiver Deion Burks, transfer from Purdue, and they got a new center. They needed badly to get that line some help, and they did in some areas, matured in some areas, but got them some help in the portal. Center Branson Hickman from SMU comes over. A lot of strengths for Oklahoma stream off of the offense, but there's a lot of question marks because the offense is under new kind of leadership. The wide receiver room keeps getting stronger. I mean, there is no lack of talent in the wide receiver room. I just think you got to have time to throw them the ball. And I think the offensive line is going to tell the tape of how well the wide receivers are able to do damage, in the terms of putting points on the board this year. Secondary is athletic. It's very experienced, as we talked about with Billy Bowman. The defense is going to be, Brett Venables is always going to bring a solid defense to the table. I think that'll be a strength and a backbone of the team this year. In a tough SEC slate, even though they didn't get a tough SEC slate, But some games on there are definitely circled games for them as welcome to the SEC. And then, Sawchuck is an explosive young running back. Can he stay healthy? There's not a lot of depth there, but there's really great talent there. Questions, can the O-line play improve? It's just been abysmal. It's been abysmal the last 2 years. To see Jackson, I don't know what if you can give that kid time, you go from having a quarterback who's just getting talked about all he could do to becoming a quarterback that shows you all he can do. And can he flourish under Luttrell's offense as a new OC? Venables just signed a new contract. Is he long term? Like, that's one of my question marks. Like, I don't know. I mean, I do think SEC play will it'll grow you up really quick, and so he could go from new contract, and we think we're on the right path to I don't know, buyout and moving along. I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a short leash on both, Venables and, in Texas, in Sark at Texas. I don't think Sark has any reason to worry about his job right now, and I don't think Venables does either. But I do think Venables, when you look at him, it doesn't transfer as well as a Sark, as far as overall involvement. Venables is a really great defensive coach, but he does leave it a lot up to the offensive coaches to make sure that they can score points. And then defense has the tools to be elite. Can Venables get them there? That's no question to me. I think Venables can get them there, and they stay healthy. And it's like we said with Mississippi State, they throw the ball a lot. That requires them to be on the field a lot. And can the defense hold up? Can Venables? Does he have enough depth to be able to hold up? And they're playing in the SEC this year. This is not the Big 12. So does he have enough depth to hold up in a hard-hitting, fast-paced SEC? We'll see. We'll see. Obviously, we talked about big coaches changes in the offensive coordinator realm of Seth Luttrell. Stats that need to improve. Rushing, I think it will improve. 48th overall, not bad. Averaging 172 yards a game, not bad, but I think it's going to see a lot of strides this year. And the rush defense, whoa. 178 yards a game, 110th in the league in rush defense. So if Venables has to go anywhere, it's going to be right there in that front four, front five. Key games, you got Tennessee coming to your place. That's going to be an incredible game. As you know, the alma mater of Josh Heupel is Oklahoma. He played quarterback at Oklahoma. He'll be going back into his old stomping grounds. I don't know, man, to a game that if he goes in there and loses, does he kind of start getting talked about a little bit? I won't say that yet. Auburn on the Plains, Texas away in Austin, Ole Miss at the Grove, and they do get Alabama at home, which is a need, but some tough games on the road going to Auburn, to Texas, to Ole Miss. Finally, tonight, we're going to preview Texas A&M, and this is a team that I'm extremely excited about. It's kind of my sleeper SEC team, and I'll tell you why. I like Mike Elko. Take a swallow of water. I like Mike Elko. I'll tell you why I like Mike Elko. You just gave this man a recruiting budget, the 12th man. You gave him the facilities he needed, everything he needed. And don't get me wrong, I like Duke, but Duke's coach, that's Krzyzewskiville. They admire the gym and the basketball program there way more than they admire anything else. I don't know, maybe soccer and maybe field hockey. I don't know, I forget what you call you throw that. Yep, I don't know, but it definitely ain't football. Now, Mike Elko did bring some excitement to the football program, and as he left, so did a lot of their players. There are some that returned, but we're not going to talk about Duke. What we will talk about is what Elko brings to A&M. Obviously, this is a return for him. He's a Texas A&M guy, so this will be very exciting. Some returning standouts: Shamar Turner, defensive line, quarterback Connor Weigman. Is this Weigman's year to stay healthy and just make a splash? You're gonna see a lot about how A&M goes, depending on how well they do against Notre Dame out of the box. Offensive lineman is Trezon the third. Breakthrough players, I got Weigman down here. Linebacker Tyrion York was voted unanimously as team captain. So That says a lot about Taron York. But Connor Weigman's the storyline of this all. This kid was on a roll last year, hit the injury list. Obviously took him back, had to make him kind of regroup, kind of stressed the offense and stressed at that time Bobby Petrino. Was a big reason why Texas A&M was not super successful last year. I like Elko. I think Elko brings a lot of class. He brings a lot of swag. I think he brings a lot of culture. He brings a lot of defensive grit. Just like Kirby, he brings he sets a tone there that here's the standard. You got to play up to the standard. You don't come in and set the bar. We set the bar, and you got to play, up to the standard. And I like that. I like that about Elko. When you ride solo dolo, all your coughing and things like that, you got to cover them up. Anyways, but I like Elko. I think he was a great fit for this team. I know I talked about it when I previewed Kentucky a couple weeks ago. I don't know how Stoops got a call from A&M to interview. I think he did interview, and it might have been a big reason Elko got the job because they probably saw Stoops and were like, "Yikes, this is a wild drop off," and just the I guess the I factor and watching what Kentucky's done with, in my opinion, in some areas a lot in the past few years. Just wasn't intriguing to Texas A&M. But when you look at strengths, return of Elko is definitely a strength. His defense now become elite. That is something that low key and kind of like silently became really good at Duke as well. Riley Leonard was a key part of Duke when Elko was there. But the defense became something in an ACC that struggled to score points last year that was very effective. And what Elko does from a defensive standpoint is very, very exciting. I think he's a great defensive coach. He does remind me a lot of Kirby because he still has a lot of ears. Let me rephrase that. He has his ear into the offensive stuff and he knows what's going on, but he relies a lot on those people in those areas to see how we can get our team in the right per se setups and lined up correctly so we can score points to win the game. Weigman was fantastic before his injury last year. Can he match that at all this year? Can he come in? Is it going to be a drop off? Was Petrino really the GOAT at getting A&M's offense back going until Weigman goes down? All those questions will be answered, and it'll be answered quick with Notre Dame. I think. I think being named the underdog could play in their favor in this attitude because this is a Texas A&M team that's 2 years off of really, really showing a lot of things they had so much talent the past 3 years with Jimbo and heading into, last year. And it was no lack of talent, not at all. And then the question marks is there is a talent pantry, but what about depth? Do they have depth? They saw a lot of their depth go into the portal. Can three backs make this rushing attack good? They've got a lot of talent at running back. It's definitely a part of their DNA on offense that is going to help Weigman be successful. We'll see how much it pans out on the scoreboard. But this might be a three-back attack. There's no really solid guy that just goes, I'm going to tote the load. I think these guys could possibly do that together. O-line secondary lost a ton to the portal. Lost a ton. But they also got a lot in the portal. Once Elko got there and got going, he was able to fill some needs that were there. I can't say it would be top talent, but he was able to fill some needs of solid talent that he needed. Can that gel and be picked up on so quick? And remember the name Colin Klein. If he can mesh with Weigman and Elko, can get the D going, what can this team be this year? But remember the name Colin Klein. I want you guys to remember that. Coaching changes, obviously, Elko, offensive coordinator, Colin Klein. I said remember that name because I have a feeling you're going to be very pleased with him. I like what I've seen out of him. I like the play style that he brings to the offense. I think he's going to get Weigman comfortable. What can this offense do if they actually get Connor Weigman comfortable and they actually block for him? We'll see. And then defensive coordinator Jay Bateman. Stats need to improve. Offense. This is a rushing offense, averaging 136 yards a game last year, 90th in college football. It's not going to cut it in the SEC. As we all know it, you got to be balanced and you got to be able to run the football in the SEC, in my opinion. Some of those teams that have not been successful running the football, but they were overly successful passing the ball, still ran into obstacles and didn't win a lot of games i.e., i.e. when Mississippi State and Leach was there. I mean, it was always exciting to watch, but it produced an 8-4, 7-5, 1 year 9-3 season. Key games, Notre Dame at home. Notre Dame at home is going to be a really incredible game to watch. Game day will be there. Florida's in the swamp. Missouri home. LSU home. Auburn in Auburn. Auburn's got an incredibly awesome home schedule this year for them to do some damage. Then obviously they have to go to Austin because Texas got the easiest schedule in the history of college football. So that's a wrap on episode 4 on part 4, where we preview Mississippi State, we preview Texas A&M and Oklahoma, and only 4 teams left. We're going to give a solid run at 3 next week with Auburn, Florida, Texas, and then we're going to finish up with Georgia to set the year up for success. Maybe look at where we rank some of these teams as far as top to bottom. But yeah, so if you're just now joining and recapping 34 days, Georgia Clemson, a lot of questions to be answered at fall practice. A lot of questions. A lot of things have come up in the past few weeks that we're going to talk about as we lead up. Excuse me. As we lead up into the season. Distractions. You look at distractions and you look at a lot of things. If you guys get a chance, go check out that SEC podcast where during media days, a lot of great conversation about Georgia, and just a lot of the conversation is about, I think it's Kerry Manziel, who did a really great episode talking about expectations in the running back room and expectations with Kirby. And, I think they asked her about, is this a revenge tour? And, Carson, do we think he's honestly the X factor quarterback in the Heisman Trophy? How does he play with, now he has Heisman, contender on his name tag, right? So, how does that transfer into what he does this year? I definitely will tell you that this year's schedule reminds me of the years where we opened up. There was a couple years we opened up against Clemson. A couple years we opened up against some really great teams, and then we turned around and we started SEC play no matter what, second week of the year, and that was against a tough South Carolina team most of the time. South Carolina could be coming into the possibility of their worst team in decades. In that second game of the year, they were going to play Georgia extremely tough. But Georgia is that used to be Alabama. That game circled. Now every game that Georgia plays is circled by the opponent each year. Now that used to be Alabama, and that's not the same truth anymore. So excited. We're right at 51 minutes tonight. I'd love to get out of here before the hour. But exciting stuff. Fall camp has opened if you missed it. Looking forward to tracking the next few days and having some info, maybe even hop on. If you guys follow on TikTok, Dogs Down South, if you have a TikTok page, go on there. I'll be doing some live updates throughout fall camp, and it'll get revved up over there so you can catch some short snippets of what's going on daily over there, and we'll wrap a lot of these things up weekly over here on the show. So thanks for joining tonight. We covered a lot of stuff, and can't wait to cover the last 4 teams of SEC preview, because that means we're getting closer and closer. If you have questions, comments after this live goes off, put it in the comments. I will answer it now or on the next show. Email as well, dogsdownsouth@gmail.com. If you have any mailbag questions that you want to ask or put on the show, feel free to jump out there and email the show, dogsdownsouth@gmail.com, and your mailbag question will be read on here. We'll definitely try to answer it. And make sure, as we said at the beginning, go drop a like, follow on YouTube, Facebook as well, but definitely YouTube, trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And this will be live. This will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify within 24 hours after we are off the live this evening. So on behalf of myself, and we missed Mr. Adam Fisher. We missed Bobby Riles tonight, but can't wait to link up soon. And thanks for flying solo with me tonight. Hope you guys had a great evening. Looking forward to the rest of camp. Go Dogs.